What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Insights, the podcast built to help you with your recruitment and digital marketing. I'm joined this week by David Searns, co-CEO of Haley Marketing. David, how are we feeling this week?
I'm doing awesome, Brad. How are you?
Good. We get some pickleball in today?
I didn't, so don't get me started on my crankiness because they're resurfacing the courts where I play, and then so everybody went to another place. There's like 10,000 people. So
Yeah.
I said, nope, I'm not waiting to play one game per hour. But they'll be back tomorrow, so I'll go.
Got it. So a minor setback for a major comeback.
Yeah, yes, and the fact that I get to play virtually year round now is awesome.
I don't want to tell you it snowed in Buffalo 2 days ago, but it snowed in Buffalo 2 days ago.
So sorry.
Yeah, we took Bryce to soccer and had a 30-minute soccer practice. Practice is a loose term when you're 3 years old, but we had a soccer practice in the snow with every kid freezing, jackets, hats, gloves. It was fun, but miserable.
I remember those days very well, and made me very happy that when my kids grew up, they were not soccer players because they played sports where it was element controlled.
Perfect. Yeah, we're gonna let them keep trying it out, but I told them if it's gonna snow again next week, we're not going. David, the reason I wanted to get you on this episode of Insights is you just dropped a great article, or really issue, of the Smart Ideas newsletter.
It was a rant. Let me be honest. It was a rant.
It was. And as soon as I read it, I sent you an email and said, I want to bring you on the show to talk about it. Because I think you might still have some more on your chest that you want to get off of it as it relates to digital only madness. But friends, if you don't subscribe to the Smart Ideas newsletter, David, before we get into actually this specific issue, I want to give you the opportunity to tell our listeners about the Smart Ideas newsletter.
Yeah, happy to. So, we've been doing a newsletter for the staffing industry all the way back to 1996. And once upon a time, it was physically mailed out, old school, in an envelope. Then we started a newsletter called the Idea Club in the early 2000s. And over the years, it's evolved. And what we decided to, based on what's happening in the world now, is publish more frequently, but with a more refined idea. And so that's where our Smart Ideas Weekly came from. We are 79 issues in of doing a new idea every single week. Once in a while, I know, Brad, you take over and give me a little break and share some of the best clips from our various podcasts. But the idea is that we are sharing one specific issue, tactic, thought that a staffing company can put into action for sales, for recruiting, or for marketing.
And they're all good. But this one hit me, and I wanted to bring you on to talk about it. So friends, if you're watching on YouTube, I am going to do what they tell every host not to do, which is read directly from the monitor. But for the listener, I want to just set the stage with what this issue was about. Stop the digital only madness. Why your lead generation strategy is failing. Stop it. Seriously, stop it. Are you banging your head against your keyboard wondering why your cutting edge digital lead generation automation isn't delivering? You're not alone. Every week, I, meaning David, talk to staffing executives frustrated that their digital marketing funnel isn't producing the promised land of endless qualified leads. Let me be blunt. The all digital approach to staffing sales is a fantasy, and it's a cold, hard math problem. David, hard open here. Hard open here.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, my friend?
So the issue here, Brad, and in the beginning of the Smart Idea really is what it's all about, is we're seeing this strong desire for people to find this magic solution that says, I can just go to LinkedIn and set up an automation, or I can just set an outbound email sequence, and the world will be the path to my door. And that methodology actually can work. So my rant wasn't, entirely saying this is fantasy that it can't work, but the problem is the cold hard math. So for digital only to work, you need a massive audience you're targeting. And the reason for that is the percentage of response. So back in the old direct mail days, we would build campaigns off of getting a 0.5% to a 1% conversion rate. And you could make a successful direct mail campaign getting that lower percentage converting. But in the digital world today, people get so many emails, so much LinkedIn outreach, that we're looking at a fraction of a percent of people that respond, take action. Yes, I might get 8, 10, I've seen even 30% of people who open an email, but the percentage who respond is tiny. And the problem for most people in staffing or recruiting is that your prospect universe is not limitless. It's usually based on the industry I serve, the geography I focus on. There may be dozens, maybe hundreds. If you're lucky, maybe a couple of thousand prospects you're going after. And if you take a fraction of a percentage of your universe, you now no longer have enough new clients coming in the door to stay in business. So you need to do something more impactful to boost those conversion rates. And a fraction of a fraction, like the example I gave in the newsletter, is if you closed 50% of your leads, you'd need 10,000 prospects to get 10 new clients. Who has 10,000 prospects?
I know most of the staffing firms that I'm talking to don't, right? If you're a small to mid-sized staffing firm in Buffalo, New York, there's not 10,000 companies that you have the opportunity to work with.
Yeah. And actually, when I was working in mom and dad's staffing company in Western New York, we did that analysis. There was about 2,000 companies in all of Western New York that might be qualified to buy staffing services. So that was it. That was our entire universe. And the reality is there was about 500 that were really good prospects.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about my friends over at Broad and Madison. If you're running a staffing firm and your tech stack feels more like a roadblock than a growth engine, Broad and Madison is your fix. With over 60 years of recruitment technology expertise, they streamline your systems, automate the boring stuff, and make your tech finally work for your team, not against it. They're not just another managed services provider, they're technologists first. With deep bullhorn know-how and real-world implementation experience, Broad and Madison doesn't just keep your systems running, make them smarter, faster, and more profitable. To learn more about my friends over at Broad and Madison and how they can help your staffing firm maximize its technology, visit broadandmadison.com. Again, that's broadandmadison.com. All right, let's get back to the show. So what do you propose we do? If we're thinking digital only is the avenue and we're going to address that it's not, what are the best staffing firms doing differently?
So what you're looking for here is to win the battle for attention first and interest second. I love the AIDA model: attention, interest, desire, action. And we talk about it all the time in sales and marketing. But here we're competing with so many different resources, marketing messages, salespeople for attention. We have to win that battle first. And that battle is a bloodbath. Once upon a time, there weren't that many different ways to get a hold of a prospect. I could call them, I could stop by, I could send them something in the mail, I could send them an email. But today, I can reach them through tremendous number of different digital channels: email, text messaging, various social media. You name a platform, and I can try to find staffing people there. And that's great that I can find people in all these places. But I don't know where my ideal client is. I have to think about why they're there, and I have to do something to get their attention. And when I'm on that platform, think about what a feed looks like on whatever your social media channel of choice is. You're seeing, when you log in, recency, what just came up. You're seeing what's curated for you based on what you've looked at in the past. You're seeing advertisements that were targeted at you. But you're not necessarily seeing that salesperson who desperately wants to reach you. They're not likely to show up in your feed. And if they do show up, you're just scrolling by and you don't know their name, you don't know their company, so you're not stopping to look at anything. And then there's your inbox. You're getting 147 emails a day. If you're lucky, that's all you're getting. Everybody promising the answer to your problem. And now, thanks to AI, and I love AI, you're getting them pseudo personalized based on data out of your LinkedIn profile. So you're just kind of rolling your eyes going, yes, I know I went to this university. Thank you for telling me about that. So if I'm going to get someone's attention, what the best staffing companies are doing is they're creating a sequence, just like they do with an automation: step 1, step 2, step 3, but they're integrating different types of touch points. They're integrating picking up the phone. We're seeing so much call reluctance. Pick up the phone. They're integrating old school. They're sending things in the mail. They're dropping things off. They're not dropping by just with the hope they're actually going to meet the prospect. They're dropping by to leave something that makes an impression. Because if I get that awareness, and you can think about awareness as I've got 3 seconds to get you to go, aha, your eyes open. Then in that 3 seconds, I've got to convert to something you're interested in. And the other thing I see, and this is kind of related to the automations, lots of staffing companies whose sequences are all about pitching their services. Nobody wants to read a sales pitch. So the best staffing companies are using those 3 seconds to tie in some issue, problem, situation that's going to be immediately relevant and ideally a big pain point for the person they're trying to reach.
Why do you think our marketing messaging, I guess, instinctively goes to the me approach? Why is
Well,
that
think about
first cold outreach about what my staffing services do in that me approach?
Well, if you think about how staffing salespeople are managed and rewarded, okay, they're managed on how many calls did you make, how many connects did you have, how many meetings did you have. They're rewarded on how many people placed orders that got filled. So if your paycheck is entirely dependent on how many people placed an order, when I'm on the phone, when I'm in person, all I'm thinking about is how do I get this order? So instead of setting up the value proposition of staffing, I'm focusing on the low-hanging fruit. Do you have a need? Can I fill it right now? Because I want the instant gratification as a salesperson. I go for the easier sale, which is there's a need for exactly what I sell that's not being met, so I'll sell that. But most of the people you're calling on, they have what, 3, 5 different staffing vendors? The probability of all of those vendors failing at the time I make a call is slim. So I got to think about how am I going to play a longer game? And that's where looking at values, focusing on problems that the buyer has is actually the key to success, but it's very hard for people to do because it's not how they're incented. And very often it's not how they're trained. They're not trained on the economic value of staffing services. They're trained on using staffing to fill job openings.
Had Brad Smith on the show a couple weeks ago, and he had mentioned that he had heard recently on a call that it took a client 70 touch points to land a conversation with a prospect. When we think about the current sales environment and the current sales landscape, what you're alluding to is exactly the methodology of getting more touches with prospects, getting in front of the right people, but also not doing it in a way that's going to frustrate them and upset them.
Well, yeah, think about how you might buy anything. So the desire to buy comes in one of 2 ways. Way number 1 is I have a problem, so I'm going to go find a solution to this problem. So if I'm a hiring manager, somebody quits, I have a problem, I need to hire someone. That drives a need. The second way you find it is somebody raises awareness of an issue that didn't occur to you that you had. Maybe you read an article about the cost of turnover and you started looking and saying, you know, compared to my competitors or compared to what industry averages are, we seem to be turning over a lot of people. And even worse, we're losing good people. We're not losing the people that, probably should churn. That's a problem. Maybe I wasn't aware of it, so I saw something. So that creates the need. Once I know that I have the need, now I'm going to go figure out how to solve the problem. I'm not going to pick up the phone and call a staffing agency right away. I'm going to do research. I may jump on Google. I may go to my favorite AI and start to ask, how do I solve this problem? And as I start to do research, I'm going to find ideas on how to solve the problem. I'm going to find companies that can solve the problem. And once I've seen those companies, they start to become top of mind for me, especially if I see them over and over again. So that 70 touches, what's happened in there is there was that initial awareness creation, there was generating interest, there was a period of building trust, and then there was just simply staying top of mind until the situation changed that the buyer had the need because either A, something popped up that they had that, yes, I need a staffing agency now, or B, no, I've got a problem and, oh, maybe a staffing agency is the solution type of need has driven it. But it's going to take a lot of touches to be, quote, at the right place at the right time. Because when you're just making cold calls or when you're just using outbound sequences, the probability of being at the right place at the right time is about 3%.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about an offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage. 30 minutes of strategic marketing consultation with me, completely free. Hey, whether you're looking to drive more sales or more job applications, I want to help. Visit bit.ly/stage offer. Pick a time that works best for you. That's it. Again, whether you want to drive more applications or more job orders, I want to help. That's bit.ly/stage offer. All right, let's get back to the show. How do we change the dialogue internally? So if there's a sales rep listening right now who is being coached from their sales manager of, listen, get the order, get the conversation about an order. This is how we run things. This is how we do things. Knowing that's not really the way the world works anymore. How do we change the internal conversation to being more about the long game and laying the foundation for the orders to come in Q3 and Q4?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brad. And if you think about it, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like the way we talk people about SEO. It's like it's not an instant result. We can't go make an edit to your website and all of a sudden you rank number one. It's going to take lots of changes over time, and usually it's going to be 3 to 6 months till we start to see results. So if you tell a salesperson, "Hey, we're going to change your selling approach, and it's going to be 3 to 6 months before you sell anything," they're going to go fat chance. So what we need to think about is when you're calling on a prospect, you want to talk to as many people as you can, but you want to have two strategies in mind. Strategy number one is, do they have that need? They know about pain that needs to be solved right now, and there's a sales opportunity. I could show them how to use our services to solve a problem today. That's the first thing I want. I'm going to start with the lowest hanging fruit, the most tangible need, someone who needs to hire. Then I'm going to start to ask questions to go a little higher up, saying, okay, they don't need another staffing agency. Is there a problem to be solved that staffing could solve? That will get my next level of people who might be interested in a sale right now. But after that, I have to think about the most of the people that are going to talk to me probably aren't going to need my services for days, weeks, months, maybe even years, but that's okay. If I build up a pipeline of people at different stages, I should have a small number of really hot prospects that need my services. That's where my proposal is going. I'm working on closing the deal, going up to a very, very large number of people that I want to be top of mind with, that I want to be seen as an expert. I want to be seen as, and you may like this one, a spear removal surgeon, something we learned from Jim Cecil. And he tells the story of somebody being hit in the chest with a spear, and who do they think of at that moment in time to get the spear out? You want to be seen as that expert, and that's the long game. So every sales call, you go in thinking I'm going to try to play the short game, but if there's no short game to be won, then I need to convert and start thinking the long game. So quick side story. We had a client in Allentown, Pennsylvania, a salesperson. He loved to go on site visits. And as he went through a plant, he'd introduce himself to everybody. Say, hey, my name's Tom. Can I get your name? And by the way, if you got a card, I'd love to just stay in touch. In 10 months' time, Tom built a list of 3,000 people who had agreed for him to stay in touch. It got to the point that whenever he sent out something via email, and he did a lot of email marketing, he would almost always get 2 or 3 of the 3,000 who had that immediate need. He'd get job orders. But then weird things happened. He'd get people who weren't at the bottom of the funnel, but in the middle of the funnel saying, hey, Tom, you sent me some great information on X topic. Maybe it's workforce planning.
Yeah.
We're having some challenges just thinking about how to deal with issues in our workforce. Would you come out and just talk with our team? And he started to be invited to events as a speaker just because he built this long game network and nurtured it regularly. I loved his success from going in. Yeah, I'm trying to make the deal today, but I'm going to play the long game with every person I meet. And in every facility, I'm going to meet as many people as I can.
That reminds me of a conversation I had with Tom Erb on our Take the Stage podcast. Tom had said the majority of the industry is treated like a necessary evil. We're only called upon when somebody absolutely needs us. And most times they don't even want to talk to us. We are that necessary evil. They can't find a candidate for the role. The role's been open for a month or two. So they know, I got to call David staffing firm, right? We're that necessary evil. The goal, though, is to become a trusted advisor. And in this case, Tom is that trusted advisor. Tom is somebody who, even if they don't have a staffing need, he's coming in to help with their staffing challenges. He's coming in to help with their workplace challenges. And then as a byproduct of that, he's getting the order when there is one. He is that trusted advisor at the very, very top of the pyramid.
Yeah, if I can use an analogy, like Tom would love to be seen like a Swiss Army knife, right? I have a tool for every problem that might pop up in your business, not as the specialty. I'm the temporary staffing for light industrial screwdriver when you have a screwdriver that's broken in your business, because a lot of staffing companies come in with that one thing. I'm the screwdriver that fixes this problem. But if I can be seen as the jackknife, the person who's a Swiss Army knife who can come in with lots of solutions to different problems, and I'm positioned as a solution to those problems, I'm going to get way more opportunity to sell over the long term.
David, within the article and newsletter, rather, in Smart Ideas, you had mentioned that the challenge is establishing credibility from the start. So when you think about selling staffing services, friend who's listening right now, you're calling on someone who is also being called on dozens of times. They're receiving
Absolutely.
hundreds of emails, all of which maybe say the same things. Now, maybe they don't, right? Maybe they're a little bit different. But David, how can the average staffing firm or sales rep establish credibility from the very beginning of the conversation?
Yeah, I'm going to actually give you an example of a cold outreach that worked on me
Perfect.
that fills this. And this just happened a couple weeks ago. So much cold outreach. I mentioned that AI personalization. Oh, I see you went to Wharton. Would you like a UPenn sweatshirt? It's like, tell me you went to Wharton. You didn't. You don't know
Yeah.
anything about it. You know that if you went to Wharton, you probably, you're part of UPenn, but you never think of UPenn. You think of Wharton. So to me, it's, that's an instant tell. This person, they're just picking
Yeah.
things out of my LinkedIn bio.
Yep.
But I got one that said, David, I can see from your LinkedIn bio, you're co-CEO at Haley Marketing. And we work with marketing agencies. And if you're like a lot of the people we're working with right now, these are the big things that you're worried about for Haley Marketing. And instead of looking at me and trying to personalize around David, they personalized around where I want the business to go. And that added instant credibility because they demonstrated, I'm sure it was still AI because actually that's what they were selling was an AI tool to do this. But what they were showing is they had an understanding of my business challenges, my business objectives. It doesn't matter where I went to school. That was a million years ago. I could care less. But it matters very much. What am I going to do in 2025 in this economy to try to drive opportunity for our organization and the people who work for us and to try to better serve our clients? That was the credibility. So if I'm in staffing and I'm calling on John Smith hiring manager, then I need to know what John's role is. I need to know what department John works in. I need to know what that department does in a company. I need to know what John's likely to have to achieve. And then I need to be showing in my initial outreach, whatever I do to get their attention. But then in that 3 seconds, pivot to the interest. John, I've done my homework. We haven't met yet, but if you're like other people I've worked with in your same role, this is what they're dealing with right now. I can help. So it's that personalization in terms of the interests of the buyer that creates that credibility. And then it's followed up with lots of case studies, examples of we've done this before.
Yeah, I love the thought of personalized automation, which you're sort of alluding to a little bit. We've talked on this show about a GNC example that I had gotten in the mail a while ago. It wasn't just, hey, come back for 10% off. It had the product that I had bought 30 days prior on the cover of it, down to the flavor. And it was come back for 10% off, but it was also, we know that this product should only last about 30 days because they know the serving size that I bought. They knew everything about me just because I punched in my 4-digit code at the checkout, right? And because of that, then, granted, I don't love going to GNC. I'm much more of an Amazon order online kind of guy. But for 10% off the exact product that I got, down to the flavor, they knew when I was going to be out of it. They knew I needed it based on recommended serving sizes. It was perfect. And it worked for me because it spoke to me. They weren't trying to sell me anything out of the box. They weren't trying to sell me anything new. They knew who I was. They knew what I liked. They knew what I was trying to do. And it worked. It worked really, really well.
Yeah, that's a great right place, right time. And it's
Correct.
using data to make much more intelligent marketing outreach. So most staffing companies have the ability to look in their ATS and say, let's look at past clients.
Yep.
When did they order? What types of people did they order? Why did they order? You could even look so far as, who did they accept? Who did they reject? So, and thanks to tools like AI, it makes it really easy to do that analysis to say, let's look at each one of our former clients, figure out when they used our services, what types of people they hired, who they rejected, what's common about those things, and then follow up. It'd be great to do skill marketing that way today. Hey, Brad, last time we worked together, you hired somebody just like David, and you seemed to really like that David had X in his background. I just had an amazing candidate who also has X in his background. And, if there's anywhere in your organization that you need somebody, you need to see this individual. So you can do much more targeted skill marketing based on your knowledge. Or maybe you deal with people that is very seasonal. So you know when they're likely to need, and more importantly, you know when they're likely to start the hiring process for those needs. So you can get in front of several weeks in front of when they're going to start to hire and start planting the seed of, we're going to be ready for you when you're going to start hiring because your season's coming up. So here's what we're doing now to be ready for you. I don't know if any of your current vendors are doing this, but this is what we're doing.
Do you want to land more clients and close more deals in 2025? Haley Marketing is offering big savings to help staffing firms like yours grow. Get $1,000 off targeted marketing campaigns, free tools to track your hottest leads, and no setup fees on services that help your company get found online. Plus, we'll even help you stay in touch with prospects for free. But you need to act fast. These deals end June 30th. You can visit bit.ly/Bialy offer to find out more information. Again, that's bit.ly/Bialy offer for more information. All right, let's get back to the show. To help us get out of this one, if we need to stop the digital only madness, what's the next move? Where do staffing firms go from here?
Well, what I would look at is, number one, who am I trying to reach and how big is that market? If my market was 100,000 people, I'd continue with the digital only madness. But if my market's 500, 1,000, my favorite one, Brad, ever was one where the entire universe was 18 people.
Yeah, remember that project.
So I would look at who I'm trying to reach. And then I would try to know as much as I could about that audience. Not necessarily the individuals, salespeople can do that, but certainly the industry, the roles. If we're going to do more of account-based marketing, the individual companies. And then I think about it, I just sit down and brainstorm. All right, sit down with ChatGPT and I'd brainstorm. What are all the ways that I could get this person's attention? And I'd experiment. Yeah, I can do cold email outreach. Yeah, I can just do cold calling. Maybe I can do a sequence of call, email, LinkedIn. I can stop by and drop something off. I can send something in the mail. I mean, a FedEx, there's 100% open rate to a FedEx. But then I would be brainstorming, what am I going to do with my 3 seconds? Something's got to be in that FedEx envelope. And if it's just a sales pitch for the staffing company, I've wasted my FedEx. So now I have to use my knowledge of how to transition. And then I'm going to want to use the digital in the sequence to follow up. That's going to intersperse emails, calls, LinkedIn, and once in a while something physical, so that I'm not just buried in a pile of email going forward. So the full answer to your question, Brad, is that you're going to create what's called integrated direct marketing, a campaign that integrates multiple channels of communications into a structured sequence that makes it super easy for a salesperson to know, here's when I call, here's how I follow up, here's what I do, but all the other touch points are going to get done.
You're marrying marketing and sales, right? So there's not just sales and marketing. It is a comprehensive, integrated entity that is working together.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you just make cold calls, if you're lucky, you're going to get a 2.5% conversion rate where somebody's going to agree to talk to you. Mm-hmm. If you just do cold email or cold marketing, you're still going to get a relatively small percentage. But when you put the two things together so that you're having a person follow up on the marketing and the marketing then follow up again on the person, that creates a synergy. It makes it easy for someone to respond to you. You're giving them the path of least resistance. If I want to talk to a person, the phone's ringing. If I don't want to talk to a person, the email's taking me to a landing page where I can learn more information before I talk to the person. So you're giving people as many different ways to engage with you as possible. You're making it easy and convenient for them, but you are 100% integrating the sales and the marketing together. And then we see, my largest percentage ever was 60%, but usually it's 10 to 15% kinds of conversion rates are the norm.
He's David Searns, co-CEO with Haley Marketing. David, before I let you go, anything else on your mind, and that's a very open-ended question, I know, as it relates to marketing for the staffing and recruiting industry, anything else that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, we were part of it this morning. So we're looking at making sure we're very on top of what's going on with our clients. And in this case, for us, it's our clients' clients. We're deep into using AI at Haley Marketing and developing new products with AI at Haley Marketing. But I'm not seeing the same level of adoption by salespeople. So your salespeople are going to make calls. All the research you want them to do to have really good calls, They can do it all now almost instantaneously. We this morning, in less than 20 minutes, had people put together complete marketing strategies to grow staffing sales. Some of the output was just mind-blowing in 20 minutes. Your salespeople can be doing this with their prospecting. They can be doing this to better personalize their outreach. They can be doing it to better understand who they're calling on. They can be doing it to create a more impactful first outreach. And it's not just using the AI to write. It's using the AI to research. It's using the AI to brainstorm. It's using the AI to tap into what's in your brain to help you create a better output, to help you create a better outreach. They do all that, then your salespeople are going to be way more productive.
Again, he's David Searns, co-CEO at Haley Marketing. David, can't thank you enough for coming on the show and joining us for another episode of Insights.
Always fun. Thanks so much, Brad.
That's our show. And thank you for listening to another episode of Insights. If you found this episode valuable, we would love to know. You can message David or Brad on LinkedIn and share your thoughts. If you have a question for us, you can tweet us at Haley Marketing or email info@haleymarketing.com. And of course, if you need a hand with your recruitment or digital marketing efforts, we'd love to help. Again, email info@haleymarketing.com and be sure you tell them that Insights sent you. For my co-host this week, David Searns, I'm Brad Bialy. We'll see you next time.